Obviously, Julian Assange has been in a British prison for weeks now. He was moved to the hospital wing of the prison because he is struggling health-wise. He's reportedly lost a lot of weight. Apparently, his lawyer couldn't even speak with him because cognitively he was struggling. This could be part post-traumatic stress because he was just basically imprisoned in an embassy for the last 7 years. There's a lot of things that could be happening to cause him problems. Obviously, the Trump administration has all but thrown out the pretense that they care about the freedom of the First Amendment. They don't care. And they have been trying to get Julian Assange extradited to the United States, which, if he is extradited to the United States, he's probably looking at life in prison, probably solitary confinement. I don't know if he would get the death penalty. I'm sure they would want to, but they would probably be trying to file as many charges as possible to make sure he never sees daylight again, which is essentially criminalizing journalism. And I really don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it anymore from people who say he's not a journalist. What did he do? What did he do that wasn't journalism? They have provided zero evidence that Julian Assange helped Chelsea Manning hack into government or Pentagon or CIA or any government servers. There is zero evidence they have provided that Julian Assange was a collaborator in hacking into the government database or anything like that. Today, the British Home Judge, whatever that position is, the Home Secretary, Saeed Javid, has revealed he has signed a request for Julian Assange to be extradited to the United States, where he faces charges of computer hacking. Speaking on BBC Radio's Fours Today program, he said he's rightly behind bars. There is an extradition request for the U.S. that is before the courts tomorrow, but yesterday I signed the extradition order and certified it, and that will be going in front of the courts tomorrow. Javid's decision opens the way to the court sending the WikiLeaks founder to the U.S. Assange faces an 18-count indictment issued by the Department of Justice that includes charges under the Espionage Act. He is accused of soliciting and publishing classified information and conspiring to hack into a government computer. Javid said, quote, "It is a decision ultimately for the courts, but there is a very important part of it for the Home Secretary, and I want to see justice done at all times, and we've got a legitimate extradition request, so I've signed it, but the final decision is now with the courts." This is, make no mistake about it, they are rubber stamping Julian Assange's extradition. To me, the court hearing, which is tomorrow, is just a formality. I think they're going to extradite Julian Assange. I think the fix is in. I think they want to make an example out of him. I think they want to totally intimidate and dissuade, fearless journalism in America, and frankly, it seems around the world. Julian Assange, whatever you think about him, you could think Julian Assange is a Putin puppet. You could think that he helped Russia embarrass Hillary Clinton, although I've never seen any evidence that WikiLeaks' source was Russia. The corporate media just regurgitates that it's fact. It's not fact. There was never any evidence provided. And call me fucking old-fashioned, but I like evidence before I'm about to declare that WikiLeaks, got the Podesta leaks or the DNC's emails from Russia. Call me old-fashioned. I require some evidence before I start talking like that. But really, what their whole indictment is based on, the smoking gun, is that Julian Assange tried to help Chelsea Manning figure out a password, and to figure out a password to protect her identity, which is a journalist's top responsibility. The journalist's top responsibility is not just to break a story, it's to protect their sources for the story. Julian Assange did not work with Chelsea Manning to hack into government computer files and government documents. He did not work with Chelsea Manning to do that. He encouraged Chelsea Manning to provide WikiLeaks with the information and the documents, which is what journalists do all the time. You try and manipulate sources sometimes. You try and encourage them. You try and lift them up. You try and give them the courage to do it. When they get cold feet, you get back on them. You know, it's like trying to take somebody to the river. You know, you can't make them drink the water, but I can take you to the water. Make no mistake about it. They have zero evidence that Julian Assange was an active participant in hacking government documents. If they did, don't you think Barack Obama's Justice Department would have had this evidence for 7 years? They chose not to prosecute Julian Assange because they knew they didn't have evidence that clearly showed he wasn't acting as a journalist, but acting as a participant. There was no evidence of that, or else Obama's Department of Justice would have indicted him. The reason Trump's administration is indicting him is they don't give a damn about the law. The Trump administration, basically, because the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, all of the military-industrial complex, they hate Julian Assange because they are not open. If there's one thing the military-industrial complex is not, they are not reflective people. They do not care to look and see, well, maybe it's a good thing that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange exposed war crimes, exposed that the United States was recklessly and indiscriminately and without regard for anybody killing Iraqis. Because to them, the bigger crime is exposing the barbarism and the murder that has been the United States empire. To them, the crime is not what the United States did. The crime is exposing it. And they are trying to shut up those who would try to expose it. That's what this is. So you want to talk about that Trump is a grave threat to journalists because he tweets mean things about Chuck Todd? I don't give a flying fuck what Donald Trump tweets about Chuck Todd or any other journalist. Is it untoward for the President of the United States to be doing these things? Sure. But I don't really care that Donald Trump is tweeting out nasty things about journalists. I care that Donald Trump and his Department of Justice is trying to redefine what makes a journalist and what makes a participant in a crime. I do not want the Department of Justice and Mike Pompeo and John Bolton and Elliot Abrams deciding who is and who is not a journalist. That is not where we should be going. Because if you leave it to government officials to decide who is a journalist, what is or is not acts of journalism, they are going to err on the side of getting rid of the actual journalists. Let me be very, very clear with you. Fascism happens. There's several precursors to fascism. One of them is censorship. So what they're trying to do in extraditing Julian Assange, and by the way, this home judge, or what's his name? This official was the Home Secretary. By him signing the United States' extradition request, he's essentially rubber stamping it. He's essentially rubber stamping for a court. The first court hearing tomorrow for extradition for Julian Assange is tomorrow. He's essentially extradited, rubber stamping for that court to sign off on the extradition. And make no mistake about it, if they sign off on the extradition, he is going to be extradited ASAP. And if he is extradited, he will not get a fair trial. It will be a pony trial, and he will be thrown into a solitary confinement cell for the rest of his life, and the key will be thrown away. So I'm a journalist. I'm not an activist. I'm not telling you what to do, but what I believe needs to be done is people need to get out on the streets and protest this. And in front of the White House. Not for a day, not for 2 days, but until he is released. Because I am promising you, and there is stakes for me, there are stakes for Jen, there is stakes for Ty, there is stakes for actual journalists who do this work here. Because if this is what they're going to do to Julian Assange, they're coming for us next. They're coming for actual journalists. They're not coming for Chuck Todd. They're not coming for Wolf Blitzer. They're not coming for Rachel Maddow. They're not coming for the New York Times because they practice propaganda and public relations, not journalism. They are coming for us.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.